Trevor Story is having a really dominant spring so far for the Boston Red Sox. Should we be excited about him heading into this upcoming season?
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby Maljanian, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I am here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed, and it's all completely free. So you really have nothing to lose but to tune in because Locked On is your team every day. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the show. Opening day is just a couple weeks away now. I cannot wait. I'm in March Madness mode right now because I'm super excited about that as well. But baseball's right around the corner. And as we get deeper and deeper into the spring, there has to be some conversations around the Red Sox roster. Who's going to make it? Who's not going to make it? What's the infield situation going to look like? What's the outfield situation going to look like? Is somebody going to be the closer? There's lots of unknowns still surrounding this team. And on today's show, I'm going to be discussing an infielder who's been off to a very dominant spring for the Red Sox so far in Trevor Story. Also, the fact that a reliever in Liam Hendriks, who they've been waiting to get his chance to pitch for the Red Sox, has been struggling so far in the spring. And also a player who is trying to make a resurgence and is making an argument for why he could make the roster come opening day, and that is Trayce Thompson. So I'm going to be talking about all of that on today's show. And when you think of Trevor Story, you might associate him with lots of frustration and disappointment because when the Red Sox signed him, people were super excited. They knew what they were getting from him defensively, one of the best defensive infielders in the sport. And he was willing to play second base, and then they moved him back to shortstop. And then he got injured and hasn't really been able to fully stay healthy since then with his time in Boston so far. And the problem primarily has been that he hasn't been able to get going at the plate when he has been healthy. And so that has just led to a lot of fans being down on Story. But he said going into this season that he wanted to prove to Red Sox fans why he's here and show people, hey, I'm here for a reason. And the Red Sox brought me here because they believe in me and I believe in myself. He's a veteran presence. I mean, he has his Trevor Story camp over the winter where a lot of prospects come and even current players, and he gives pointers on things they could improve on and just basically bringing the team together. And that's a leadership type of thing to do, is bring your teammates together as one and really show people that you want to unite guys, and you need somebody like that to have in your clubhouse. So I think it's great that Trevor Story is leading different things and showing that he can be that veteran presence for this team, but that also has to correlate to on the field, because none of it's going to matter in terms of his progress or how he's doing off the field with acclimating the young players if he's not performing. But so far this spring, he is performing, and it's been really fun to watch him so far. So over the course of this spring training period, he has shown that he can just crush baseballs. I mean, before joining the Red Sox, he enjoyed the accolades of a two-time All-Star and consistently produced power numbers with at least 24 home runs in multiple seasons. And now on the brink of his age 32 season, his renewed energy in spring training has really set the stage for him to have a pivotal turnaround in his Boston chapter. Now, we always knew that he could crush home runs, but since he hasn't really done a lot of that in Boston, we were waiting to get that out of him. And his current performance suggests that a revitalized Trevor Story could offer the Red Sox an interesting mix of defense and a dynamic offense going into 2025. And I said that on this show we would talk about Trevor Story again, because I recorded an episode where I discussed why we can expect a turnaround going into 2025 from Trevor Story offensively. And I had discussed how he used to be a very dominant power hitter. So we just needed to see more of that. And I feel like we're starting to see glimpses of the version of him that we saw prior to him coming to Boston, which is, of course, very exciting. And if you're a Red Sox fan, you should be excited about what we're seeing, because in recent spring training action, he completely energized fans by belting 2 impressive home runs. He's currently hitting .474 in spring training, combined with a 1.447 OPS over 7 games, indicating not only a return to form, but also an improved bat speed and a refined approach at the plate, which has become very evident. And the improvement extends beyond his offensive capabilities, because his strong defensive skills remain a key asset for the team. I mean, he has just been on fire so far in spring training, and he's just kept a positive attitude the entire time. And I think he's just happy to be healthy. He had said he was ready to finally have a healthy spring with the Red Sox, and he was looking forward to coming in and getting the full length of time to get those reps in so that he could be ready for the season. And it's definitely paying off. I mean, during his first 3 seasons with this team, he missed 298 games and has had 4 stints on the injured list. In his first season here, he was limited to just 94 games because of injuries to his right hand and left foot. In 2023, he missed all but 43 games because of right elbow reconstruction. And then last April, he a really freak injury where he missed 133 games because of that left shoulder injury that he got when he was making that diving attempt to field a ground ball hit by Angels outfielder Mike Trout. So it was not fun to watch that in the moment, and it kept him sidelined for the majority of the season after that. So in those first 3 years as a member of the Red Sox, he has a slash line of a .232 batting average, .296 on base percentage, and .397 slugging, with a combined 21 home runs, 90 RBIs, and 210 strikeouts. However, it does appear that he's on the verge of having a nice comeback season, because this year, obviously, granted it's spring training, he's off to a great start. He going into Sunday's game against the Braves was 10 for 21 in terms of making good contact with the baseball, and he hit his 2 home runs on Friday against the Marlins. And you don't want to read too much into spring training, but Alex Cora did talk about how he changed his plate approach a little bit and feel like it's something that's working for him. He said he's swinging the bat better. He's on time on the fastball, and if they hang something in the zone, he's been hitting it hard. Somebody in the dugout said, save those swings for the season. I disagree. He needs to swing like that. He had too much swing and miss, but throughout camp, he has been making contact, which is great. Story also agrees with Alex Cora assessment when it comes to being consistent at the plate, as he's looking to be more selective in the batter's box and put the ball in play in 2025. He believes that his consistency at the plate first came after he returned to action for the final month of the 2024 season, because we definitely saw kind of a revived version of Trevor Story over the month of September last year, which is also part of the reason why I feel like this version of him we're seeing now in spring training could be more of what we see in 2025, because it seems like he's carrying it over from that last month of last season and putting it into spring training now and applying what he's changed. When he returned to action last year, he had a slash line of a .270 batting average, .361 on base percentage, and .429 slugging. So he is just focused on hitting the ball all over the place like that, and he feels like that'll make him a complete hitter. He said, my in the zone contact is better. That goes back to last year. It's just simplifying my swing and being able to get it off whenever I want. It has been a focus. Most importantly, he wants to stay healthy for the first time since 2021, which was his last season with the Rockies. He said, obviously, health plays a big factor in that. I'm feeling really good. I'm feeling strong and healthy. At the end of the day, to me, it's about the preparation. I know I'm doing the right things to have a successful season. It's been a good camp so far. The injuries have been a little freakish. It's nothing I could outline. Story said he wouldn't have made it through the last 3 years without his mental strength and also his wife, who he called the wet rock of his family. They were high school sweethearts and have been married since 2018, if you were wondering about his family situation. But he says that she basically held things together for him and was incredibly supportive during the last 3 years, basically keeping him encouraged and positive. And she sometimes had to remind him that he's a good baseball player and that he just needed to stay focused. So he's definitely excited for the Red Sox season in 2025 because he feels like he could make a comeback, and he's really optimistic about a lot of the talent on the team. He said, we have a lot of great talent in this room and we are coming together nicely. So me playing well will be a big part of our success, which is 100% true. I did say that word for word on this show at one point when looking ahead to the 2025 season. Was I said Trevor Story could make or break this season for the Boston Red Sox. How he performs in 2025 could make a huge difference for the team as a whole, and that has proven to be a lot of the case over the last couple years. The fact that he was hurt when the Red Sox felt like they had a hole in the lineup and they were missing something, and that piece that they were missing was him. And they're hoping that he can come back in 2025 and carry over what he's adjusted going into this year. And he just has a good attitude about everything. And that's key. Having that positive mindset, feeling like you can go into the season and have a big year with your team, is so important. So I'm really looking forward to Story continuing this dominance that he has shown in spring training, and that he can carry it over into the season, because we really could use that big bat from him. Are there concerns about Liam Hendriks? Is it time to be paranoid about what he could bring to the table in 2025? That's being discussed next. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need, delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free TradeMaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the TradeMaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code S-H-5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Are there concerns about Liam Hendriks heading into the 2025 season? Now, the Red Sox bullpen was an area that was one of their biggest weaknesses last year. And in the second half of the season, we kind of saw the bullpen just completely fall apart, and the Red Sox lost a lot of games in the second half because of it. So going into this offseason, that was one of the biggest areas that I had circled as a must improve. Now, the Red Sox did go out and add some arms. They added a couple lefties to the bullpen in Justin Wilson and also Aroldis Chapman. But Liam Hendriks is a guy who they kind of anticipated would be coming back in 2025 to be an upgrade to that bullpen, a guy who was going to go out there and pitch really well out of the pen. But so far, he's been struggling in spring training, and it definitely provides some concern in terms of what's going to happen with the closer role, because the Red Sox have a few different players who could be the closer. They haven't really named a specific closer. I don't see them doing that. I see them starting the season without a designated player in that spot, and they kind of try out different guys in that role. And then if somebody is pitching better than the other options, then they might name somebody the closer later on. But I see them going into the season with a few different guys that they could use in that spot. Obviously, it's never too wise to read into spring training results because everybody's just kind of getting back into the groove of things. But there's no way the Red Sox can be thrilled with what they've seen so far from Hendriks when they're trying to gauge if he could potentially be a closer. The 36-year-old was one of the top relievers in Major League Baseball from 2019 to 2022 when he made 3 All-Star appearances, twice winning the Mariano Rivera Award as the AL's best reliever, and striking out 359 batters across 236 innings. But a lot has transpired for him since he was at his peak. He survived that non-Hodgkin's lymphoma diagnosis during the pre-2023 offseason, then underwent Tommy John surgery later that year. He signed a 2-year, $10 million contract with the Red Sox before the 2024 season, but has still yet to make his regular season debut. So the guy has just been through a lot over the last few years, so we can't really fault him for not exactly being sharp because he's been away from the game for a bit. He's definitely one of the most well-liked players in the league right now, and he has the support of nearly every baseball fan, regardless of whether or not they root for the Red Sox, just because people respect him and his story. But he just hasn't looked much like his old self at all in spring training so far, allowing 11 hits and 6 earned runs so far in 4 innings of work. The Red Sox took a gamble with him. Let's just face it. When they signed him being unsure whether he'd be able to come back and be at the level that we're used to seeing him at. So we knew, regardless of what was decided, that there could be cons to either way, because if they didn't sign him and then he signed elsewhere and was dominant, then that would be unfortunate for the Red Sox. But if they sign him and bring him in and he isn't pitching well, then that's also really unfortunate for them. But there could be some upside there because we know his past history of being a very successful closer in Major League Baseball. And part of me wants to feel like it's just because of him taking some time to get back into it since he's been away from the game for a while and isn't used to seeing live hitting. But there's another side of me that feels like he might not ever be able to get back to that level of dominance. And I feel like his spring performances further prove what I had talked about on the show, which is that it might be too risky to start Hendriks in the closer role when the season begins because he might not be fully up to speed with what the Red Sox need their closer to be. So I discussed that, and I feel like it's looking more and more like he might not be the closer come opening day because the Red Sox need to feel like they are confident in whoever they have closing games. Now, obviously, there's still more time for the spring to progress and more time for him to continue to get better. I mean, for example, his fastball velocity has improved from 91 to 92 miles an hour at the start of the spring to 94 to 96 in his most recent outing, which was on Sunday against the Braves. But he did allow a 2-run home run to Garrett Cooper in his lone inning of work. So the velocity was the biggest thing that I've pinpointed on this show before as being the area of concern with him. If he doesn't continue to get that velocity up a little bit more, he might get shelled out of that pen and he might seriously struggle. It's definitely promising that his velocity has gone up a little bit, a typical pattern of spring training where guys are starting to get into it and they're throwing slower at first and then they're able to increase that velocity. But I do need to see him increase that velocity a little bit more in order to feel confident that he can pitch well going into 2025, because the last thing the Red Sox want to do is name him the closer come opening day, but he hasn't really shown a lot of solid effort on the mound. And then he ends up not pitching well, and then the Red Sox are stuck changing their closer anyway. So I feel like that's a decision that should be made prior to opening day. Obviously, like I said, again, there is more time left in spring training, but as of right now, I'm not making Liam Hendriks the closer. And I'm also not making Aroldis Chapman the closer either. He has also struggled so far this spring, surrendering 2 earned runs and walking 4 batters in 3 2/3 innings of work. So his walks still are a problem. I mean, Chapman can still throw 100 to 101 miles an hour on his fastball. We knew this going in, and Red Sox fans knew that they were getting a guy who could throw that fastball at a pretty lethal speed. But the problem with him is the walks and the command. He just gives up too many free passes, and that to me would seriously concern me heading into the season. So I see Chapman as more of a high leverage bridge type of guy who pitches a 7th or 8th inning in a close game before you hand it off to a closer. I think that could be a good role for him, especially because over the last couple seasons in his career, he has pitched more in that role than out of the closing spot. So I'm hoping that going into this year, we can use Chapman in a similar way. Then there's the other main closer candidate, which is second-year righty Justin Slayton, who pitched to a 2.93 ERA in his excellent 2024 debut season. So the Red Sox are definitely keeping that in mind as well. Somebody else to consider is definitely Garrett Whitlock, who's coming back from an injury and has asked to be in the bullpen. So he definitely should be in the bullpen in 2025. It's just a matter of what role they use him in. But there's still 17 days to go before the Red Sox open the regular season in Arlington, Texas. But if Hendriks continues to give up home runs for the remainder of the spring, it's hard to see how the Red Sox could have much confidence in putting him on the mound during the 9th inning. So there's definitely still a pathway for him to close games because of the fact that the Red Sox haven't set a specific closer yet. But the problem primarily is just that he hasn't pitched well enough this spring for the Red Sox at this point to definitively say Liam Hendriks is our closer, and we are confident in that. And that's what people were hoping was going to happen, was that he would pitch a lot better so far, and it would give people a sense of excitement about Hendriks and a sense of saying, okay, he's our closer. We're happy to have him as our closer, and we can't wait to see what he does. So there's a lot of pressure really on all these guys throughout the rest of the spring as the Red Sox get closer to making these types of decisions. But the biggest thing for me is that Hendriks is not going to show any improvement if he doesn't throw that fastball a little bit harder. So I'm just looking to see that from him. I'm looking to see Chapman cut down on the walks, and I'm looking at Justin Slayton just to make sure that he can still pitch well in high leverage, because obviously it was a small sample size with him, and you never really know what you're getting from year to year with guys who you haven't seen transition from year to year yet. So for a guy like him, I'm looking to see if he can go into 2025 and put up those same kind of competitive numbers out of the pen as he did in 2024. I really like this Red Sox roster makeup right now, but there are certainly some concerns still when it comes to the bullpen and whether they as a whole unit can be consistent in 2025, because as we saw last year, the bullpen falling apart in the second half of the season made it really hard for the Red Sox to try to stay in contention. So the bullpen truly is the area of the roster right now to me that I'm looking at and saying this could be a concern. This area of the roster makes or breaks how the Red Sox play as a whole in 2025. So I'm hoping these guys can continue to step it up throughout the rest of the spring. But certainly the fact that Hendriks' velocity has gone up a little bit already, you can say that that's certainly promising for the Red Sox 100%. What else is promising for Boston? There's a young player who is trying to make his mark on the team and make the major league roster. So I'm going to be discussing him a little bit next. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets. I've got my eye on a few underdogs this year, and FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. No waiting around. So visit fanduel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. FanDuel seriously is a great way to make lots of money. So you won't want to miss out on that. Just download the app today and you can bet on all kinds of different sports. March is such a busy sports month and I don't want you to miss out. So make sure that you take advantage of that today by downloading the app right after you finish listening to this episode. In talking about the Red Sox roster, there are still unanswered questions about who's going to be on the opening day roster and who's not, and where the Red Sox are going to put certain players. And Liam Hendriks is a guy who has had a close eye on him over the course of the spring to see if he could win the closing role. And Alex Cora did talk about him briefly and said he's not really concerned about it right now because it's still early on, which yes, it is, but it is important to start looking at what these guys can bring to the table heading into the season because opening day is going to be here before we know it. And because it's going to be here before we know it, you start to wonder who is going to be in that lineup for that opening series. And Wilyer Abreu is looking like a guy who might not be because more reports have come out recently about him and have said he might not be ready for opening day, which is fine. But then the question is who's going to take his spot? And Trayce Thompson is certainly a guy who's making an argument for being that guy who could fill in on that crowded Red Sox roster, at least in the interim until Abreu is ready to come back. If you ask any Major League Baseball fan who doesn't root for the Red Sox which player is leading spring training and home runs so far this year, it's likely that they wouldn't know the answer because it's not a superstar like Aaron Judge or Shohei Ohtani or Rafael Devers. It's also not even established starter or top prospect. It's a Red Sox outfielder who's just clawing for a roster spot against seemingly long odds because of their very talented and crowded outfield, and he hasn't played much in the major league since 2023. That would be 34-year-old Trayce Thompson, best known as the brother of NBA star Klay Thompson. He has 6 long balls for the Red Sox so far this spring. He hit another one on Sunday against the Atlanta Braves, upping his OPS to a ridiculous 1.734 in 29 plate appearances. He has been showing that he can mash. But the Red Sox have a stacked outfield, so that's why it was hard to really picture him fitting into that. But they do need more right-handed power, so he could go from being last-minute depth addition to an opening day roster inclusion, especially because of the fact that Wilyer Abreu might not be in the lineup come opening day. Alex Cora doesn't want to look that far ahead, but did praise his performance so far after Sunday's game. He said, "We are going to keep playing him. As you know, there is other stuff going on. I'm glad he is here. We'll see what happens in the future." So he went on also to talk about just how much that he's continued to grow and the logistics of his plate appearances. And he said, "We talk about bat speed and hitting the ball in the air and all that, but if you are not on time, you are not going to recognize pitches. Obviously, you are going to be late. Just be an athlete and put yourself in a position where you can attack the ball, move fast." Thompson is aware that he probably has to keep up at this ridiculous pace for even a shot at the roster because he knows he isn't part of the organization's long-term plans. Other potential outfielders like top prospects Roman Anthony and Christian Campbell expect to be in Boston for a long time, and the Red Sox are going to prioritize their development over keeping Thompson around. Thompson is more just from a depth standpoint so that they have another option, but they realistically don't see him being a guy who's going to be playing in the Red Sox outfield for a long time. But at least if they have him here and they feel like Roman Anthony and Christian Campbell aren't ready to start on the opening day roster and Wilyer Abreu isn't ready to come back yet because he's still recovering, then at least they know they have Thompson in there as an option who they can throw into that outfield and who they hope can just continue to mash baseballs. He said, "I have 2 kids and it's like, let's get through the day and let's get everyone tucked in at night and get ready for tomorrow." he said. So he's trying to not worry too much about roster cuts. He's just trying to take it day by day and is just staying in the moment and trying to focus on putting together the best at-bats that he possibly can. And boy, has he been putting together some really nice at-bats for this Boston Red Sox team, really showcasing his power and confidence in the spring and really trying to be a guy who makes it difficult for the Red Sox to make a decision on that outfield. Because I think the Red Sox have an idea that obviously, Jarren Duran will be out there. Ceddanne Rafaela will be out there. And Wilyer Abreu seemed like the obvious third guy to give Roman Anthony and Christian Campbell some more time before they get called up. But now that Abreu is in the situation that he's in, to where he isn't likely going to be fully ready to start the season, and even if he is ready for opening day, would they want to play him because they'd want to give him an extra day or two to make sure that he's fully 100% ready? So there's a lot of questions there when it comes to those types of decisions. And Thompson performing well in spring training is a really good, promising sign for the Red Sox that shows, okay, we have another guy here who, even though he's not a long-term solution, could fill in temporarily in the majors until Abreu comes back. And then if Abreu were to come back, I could see them DFAing him or maybe trying to trade him theoretically if they feel like he has performed well enough to where they could get some trade value for him. But I could see them doing something that allows him to get a chance with another team, because the Red Sox would have had Abreu back and also Roman Anthony waiting for his shot, who is going to continue to hopefully step up and play well with where he's at. So it gives the Red Sox options. And I know I've always preached depth, but it goes to show how important depth truly is when you're building a Major League Baseball team. You want to be able to go to different guys. You know injuries are going to happen, and you want to be able to have strong players that you can turn to in those types of situations. So will Trayce Thompson make the opening day roster for the Boston Red Sox? Will he make that road trip with the team and be somebody who gets his at-bats in on opening day for the Red Sox? Time will tell, and Wilyer Abreu's timeline will also help us tell. But I do appreciate you tuning into Locked On Red Sox and making it your first listen today. You can next listen to Locked On Fantasy Baseball with hosts Dominic Martino and Matthew One. MLB Fantasy Draft season is here. Be the most informed fan and set yourself up for a league win. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. I have a fantasy draft tonight, actually, so I am ready to go. But these guys will definitely hook you up with the latest tips on who to draft so that you can win your fantasy league and brag to everybody else who's in it. Don't we all love that? But continue to monitor Red Sox spring training and get excited for opening day, because it really is right around the corner. Like I always say, keep the faith, go Red Sox, and I'll catch you on the flip side.